Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you're listening. In this episode, I chat with Richard Gordon. Richard is Employer Brand Manager at Entain, or while I recorded this, formerly known as GVC. And I talked to him about employer branding during the pandemic and at the same time going through a global rebrand. We also chat about the content opportunities he sees for him and the team in 2021. Let's get on with the chat. Hi, Rich. How you doing?
Hi, Chris. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday indeed.
Yeah, it's been a busy one for you.
Absolutely crazy. Yeah, for a number of reasons. But yeah, new baby and at home and a rebrand going on at work. So yeah, pretty full on.
Oh goodness, don't do things by halves. Yeah, goodness me. Well, congratulations about the new arrival, and sounds like exciting times about the rebrand as well. I'm sure we can cover some of that off a bit. So let's start off with just a bit of an intro about who you are, what you do, and you've got a really interesting mix, I think, of agency and client side experience. So good to hear a bit about you.
Yeah. So my role now is at GVC, where I'm employer brand recruitment marketing and social media manager, to give me my full job title. I imagine a lot of people listening probably don't know who GVC are, but we're the holding company behind Ladbrokes, Coral, Bwin, Party Poker, and about another 20 or so betting and gaming brands. And I've been in that role for about a year now, and kind of my remit is pretty vast. So I look after our career site and the content that sits on that. Look after all our careers social media channels. I'm responsible for whatever we can do from attraction purposes. So whether that's kind of campaigns or what we do on job boards or any kind of content for attraction, really. And also how the employer brand gets iterated internally as well. So get to feed into a lot of internal projects that are kind of facing our people, be that kind of recruitment focus, like an employee referral program, or kind of even sometimes just the merch that they're giving out to people. So it touches on all sorts of elements, to be honest, and it's really, really exciting. And from my background in agencies, where I've spent most of my career, in an agency, you work on, I'm sure however many clients at any one time, like 8, 9, 10 clients sometimes, and it gives you a really, you get to work on all sorts of projects, big and small. And actually, I think agency life really set me up well for GVC, because actually, often me and my team, there's three of us, we are like a little internal agency at some points.
That's good. Yeah, it's good. I mean, that variety, I think, definitely helps when it comes to going client side, and that, I suppose there's that element of super fast pace about agency life, isn't there?
But
you're in good stead.
I think everybody, I think everyone says, "Oh, go client side," and it's quieter and it's a slower pace of life. But from my experience, that is absolutely not true at all. I've in the past year, I've launched a new employer brand for our organization out in India called Ivy. We're, as GVC, in about 2 weeks' time, we're about to rebrand the whole organization from GVC to Entain. So that may have happened by the time people are listening to this. But there's a huge amount of rebranding work going on. So I would say to anybody who listening agency side and then they're thinking, "Oh, I want to move client side," it isn't necessarily true what they all say. Yeah, exactly. But you know what? That's a good thing. I like to be busy and to have loads of stuff going on, and I think that's really exciting. I think before this role came along, I'd spent 8 months in house elsewhere and not really enjoyed it. But that was probably the wrong place for me, but this is perfect. And the year, despite lockdown, has really flown by.
It's true, isn't it? I found that as well. It's crazy how, considering we've been stuck in our houses 23/7 for a lot of this year, that it has gone so quickly. It's can't believe it's Christmas, whatever that's going to look like, of course, when we get there. But it's been quite a 2020. But it's great. I mean, it's you've been involved in been involved in a stack load of stuff, and we'll kind of talk about some of that in this chat. So your role is both internal and external facing. So there's an element of employee engagement to what you're doing as well. So I think that's really interesting, because obviously there's a lot of talk about how actually, of course, employer brand shouldn't just be externally facing. Ultimately your employer brand is the experience that your employees have. So it makes sense to, have employer brand reaching into kind of internal comms, employee engagement piece. So can you tell us a bit about how that works in your role, or what's it like doing both kind of sides of the door, so to speak?
I think it's really refreshing that we have a talent team that are really bought into employer brand across the board. So everybody kind of understands the value of it and what it means. And so I get lots of questions from other people within the organization, how could we make sure that this is on, kind of ties in with our employer brand? And I think it's really nice to have that. And I from experience of working across multiple clients before, that doesn't always exist. Sometimes there's a battle between kind of the HR function and marketing to kind of have the freedom to do what you want with the employer brand. And actually at GVC, we have that. So, I think we're coming at it from a really good position. Like I don't have to kind of justify too much of what we want to do, which I think it's quite different. I think in terms of what we do, externally, it's the employer brand. Let me just step back a bit just to kind of explain where we've come from, because actually I think say about 18 months ago, we GVC launched the employer brand just before I joined, actually, and there wasn't really a GVC brand. So GVC is essentially a holding company, and didn't really have there's no consumer brand to it. And actually, there wasn't really a corporate brand as such. So what happened over the last year or so is that the employer brand was almost adopted as the brand. The biggest audience for GVC is people who want to come and work for us, or potential clients. We have an investor relations, and that's an important facet to GVC. But actually, in terms of the volume of people, the careers audience is the biggest audience for us. So that the employer brand is integral. And so that you see employer brand kind of creative and messaging being adopted across the business, which is quite an unusual position to be in, I suppose. And we didn't have to answer necessarily to too many kind of marketing teams. Like we're quite independent, so I think that allows us to kind of get on with a lot of kind of big high profile projects, both internally and externally.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. You talk about kind of being given that kind of freedom to get on with things. I was talking to Ange Siddle, who's at Veeam Software, and given the pace of the tech industry, she was saying that they just have to move very quickly and respond very quickly to things. So there's kind of freedom to get on with things, and she sounds very similar to what you guys are guys are about as well, and it's great that you're given that freedom just to get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are a tech business as well, so I think we probably reflect that. Entain may own, or GVC may own 2,900, I think it is, but actually at the heart of it is our own tech. So everything that all that our games and our websites are built on, we own 100% of that tech, which is unusual, I think, probably across all sectors, not just our own. And there's the work that our tech teams do is obviously fast paced, and I think actually that is reflected across the whole organization. Actually, so at the moment, we announced our intention to rename last week, and that our name changes officially on the 10th of December. I was one of about 50 people who knew that was coming, but there's nothing like focusing the mind and getting people working quickly than telling them that they've got to rebrand everything in 3 weeks' time. So it's amazing how people have actually already come together behind that and united, and I think it's going to be a really positive change for us.
And that's because you kind of got your role is both covering internal and external. How does that impact on kind of your ability to kind of get stories from employees, and actually go out to employees and find those nuggets that are going to help, back up the employer brand proposition?
That's something that we're actually kind of really trying to do more of, actually. As a business, I think we're in 13, 14 different countries, some far larger than others in terms of employee numbers. But I think it's really important that we tell stories from across the whole business, so from across all locations, across all functions. And actually, I think that's something we've struggled with. I've got a small team of two, and our networks, in the grand scheme of things, across a business of 24,000 people, are quite small. So we know people in some locations who will reliably tell us what's going on, send us pictures or videos, and tell us what's happening in their territories, so that we can kind of put stuff out on social. But actually, finding out what's going on is really tricky. Sometimes we won't find out about stuff that we would have loved to have shouted about until it's 2 months too late. We have an intranet, but we have limited time to scour it, to see what's been happening. So that's actually, it's a really interesting point. It's something that we're actually looking at changing. So when we launch the new brand, we're actually going to be kind of announcing the launch of a new ambassador network. So we'll be getting people to kind of initially express their interest, and then kind of early in 2021, we'll officially launch this community of people that will be asking to, first of all, share our content, so helping get more engagement and kind of views on our stuff on social, but also asking them to send us kind of material as well. So we'll be creating a dedicated platform, and then there'll also be going to be helping kind of a third stream to it that we're working with on internal comms, around helping get a group of people together who will help embed some of the new within the business, that is kind of to make sure that people are adopting kind of new ways of working. So that it's really important, that engagement. And so we work very closely as an employer brand team, actually, with internal comms. If we want to get stuff out to the business, we have to go through them, and so we're quite tight with them, and I think that's a nice way of working. And they as a result, they're really bought into what we do as well. There's a mutual respect there, and we benefit each other.
Nice. I think there's yeah, that thing about getting buy-in from across the business to share, content. I think it's a well discussed topic, isn't it? And rightly so. And I think there's that thing about the usual what has been a well-known approach is that you send assets out to employees and engage with certain regional or champions or
Yeah.
departmental group champions who then push that out. But there's nothing like kind of starting it the other way around, which is getting people to actually be involved in creating the content, contributing to the content, so that then they've got something to share, which is their story or their advice or their opinion, as opposed to sharing what is a X by X size image that you can send on LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
Yeah. No, we want, I suppose we want a bit of both. We want people to tell us the story, particularly with a new brand. I think it's a good chance for people, to get the message of our new vision, our new purpose, the new strategy out to as many people as possible. But it's also a really good time for us to kind of get everyone behind the Entain banner and get them talking about what it's really like on their side. We do try and get as much user generated content as possible. And we do get people reaching out saying get involved and send social stuff, which is nice. But I'm hopeful that in a 2 months' time, I'll have a network of 100 people, 200 people, rather than a network of 10, say, who give us a wider variety and a kind of a better representation of what it's about. But it's kind of luck that we're kind of branding and launching this at the same time. But I think it's a perfect time to do it. There's so much that we want to talk about, and but both what we do internally and what we want to, what's in it for people to come and work for us.
And so tell me a bit about For the Good of Entertainment. So I see that on your website, there's connected to a lot of your content, understandably. So kind of, tell us a bit about that and kind of how it influences your content.
Yeah. So for the Good of Entertainment, kind of initially it was our employer brand kind of statement that was launched in August of last year. And where that came from is we are at our heart an entertainment business. Our brands are there to make kind of live sport and kind of more exciting and engaging and kind of give people a bit of excitement. Similarly, the kind of the casino and the bingo brands as well. It is about entertainment at its heart. And for the good of is around how we try and ensure that everybody is kind of gaming responsibly and doing it in the right way. And how that's been adopted in terms of our content is actually we've done a lot of stuff around responsibility, around CSR, as one of our industry is, in terms of one where trying to sell our industry sometimes can be a bit tricky. It's one, I suppose, just because of the nature of it, we get people objecting to it because of what we do. I suppose tobacco is the other big one. In terms of, if you were approached by somebody working for one of the big tobacco firms, would you go and work for them? Because of how you feel about it personally, and I suppose gambling is another one of those kind of more contentious ones. But actually, when we talk to people about the measures that we have in place, the technology that kind of goes into kind of monitoring our customers' behavior to make sure that they're not developing any bad habits or going to place betting more than they should do, and I think that actually does change a lot of people's opinions about the business. So we post a fair amount of content around safer gambling and CSR and what good the business does. But actually, what I think we have actually neglected over the past few months is entertainment. And so actually we do have a bit of a license, again, because of the sector, to be more entertaining. And actually, that's actually a real focus for me and my team over the next weeks and months, is that we actually do entertain people on our channels as well, providing them with entertaining careers content. So, we're actually going to be launching a podcast of our own in the coming weeks. We'll be kind of setting up webinars and just providing more ways for people to engage with us. I think it's we're exploring some edgier stuff, which I can't tell you too much about right now, but actually I'm really, really excited about. We're not going to be the next Paddy Power. We probably won't go quite that far, but I think that we want to kind of get people excited about it, and GVC, Entain, and what it's like to work here. And I think we'd like to do that through some more kind of entertaining content. So there is license to do that.
Well, it's great, isn't it? Because what you're doing is you're doing you're proving your proposition through your actions as opposed to just by your words. So it's great having that as your kind of, I suppose it's your kind of editorial guidance or mission statement, however which way you want to say it, is that actually, are we living up to what we say we are? And so it's really great you're doing that, and that podcast sounds great. Looking forward to listening to that.
I evidence it through how, through a lot of the stuff we do as a business, but I'd like to showcase it a bit more through our social content. Watch this space, I'd say.
Yeah, too right. And so you've been there for over a year now, and what piece of content that you've been involved in producing puts a big smile on your face when you think about it or see it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I put a bit of thought into this, and I suppose that the way that the year we expected it certainly didn't turn out what we were kind of planning. After I joined in November, I think I went on jury service for 2 weeks or 3 weeks in December or January, and then COVID hit. So I've probably spent about in my office, I've probably spent about 4 weeks in total, which is crazy to think of. And one of my team members, I've only met him once when I interviewed him, and that's it. I had all these ideas about the things that we'd like to do this year, and most of that hasn't happened. I was meant to be launching a new employee referral program back in, I think it was mid-March, and that kind of got postponed. Hopefully we'll be launching in kind of Q1 2021. But I suppose I was envisaging initially that I could talk to you about that as a piece of content and what we've done to promote it. But actually, the kind of the piece of content I'm most proud of is an animated video that we did in, I think it was August time. It was a bit of a pat on the back for all. Say thank you, well done. You've got us through it. But also,
I remember that. Yeah. Really nice.
But also it was, to say we are strong as a business. Come and work for us, and we've been quite resilient. We're in a kind of quite fortunate that the business has performed well kind of throughout. Conserve money where we could, and we were July, August time. The number of applications we got was just absolutely incredible, and I can't put it down to that video, but it was as it went down, both we used it internally and externally. We did 2 edits of it, and the response that we had to it was phenomenal. Actually, just hearing the feedback from kind of people on Exco actually talking about it was so rewarding. But I know it was just an enjoyable piece to do. It was, you know, pulling all the stories that video tells, makes you realize kind of how people across the business came together, you know, to make sure that we all looked after each other. And it was quite a nice piece emotionally to do. And then the way it looks, and yeah, we just had such good feedback to it. That also makes it worthwhile.
No, too right. And it's really nice to, I think, those kind of, that kind of content really just, I think, reminds us all about how much of a big part of one's life working is, you know, and so therefore kind of what it means. So it's not saying that work is the be all and end all, but it does, you know, take up a big part of one's life. To be able to kind of acknowledge that and celebrate that and show that, you know, that coming together of people to get stuff done, you know, through difficult times is lovely. It's kind of a gives you goosebumps looking at it.
Absolutely. You know, obviously our biggest sports are, you know, football. But within like the first few weeks of lockdown, you know, I think our traders became experts in table tennis because that was what most people were betting on. And, you know, we launched new games and we launched new products, and there were some kind of huge tech migrations still going on in the background over this period. And just the fact that it still all got done, and you know, nobody would have noticed that anything was different, I think, is really quite astounding.
Nice. Well, I'll drop a link in the episode description to that video so people can take a look at it, bring it to life for them. But,
and if you ask me this question in 2 weeks, I'd probably change, because, you know, when the rebrand happens, I'll be like, well, some of the rebrand content. But, you know, this video was really made me proud. So yeah, let's go with that.
We'll have to do another one. We'll have to do another one later on in a few months' time to catch up and I think talk about the rebrand and some other content. I think it's really nice to kind of, you know, talk about you know, things like what puts a smile on your face when you're working, because that's ultimately what it's about, isn't it? So let's finish off with putting together, I suppose, a few takeaways. This is really like, you know, imagine some of the listeners they got that next, say, talent attraction meeting, and they got an agenda. Let's maybe put a few items on that agenda. What would be worth them talking about based on kind of what we talked about so far?
I would think about the kind of the type of content that the audience that you're looking to attract is interested in. You know, we're trying to get it from just doing, you know, it's been the case for a while now, but just doing job postings like that and saying, you know, posting something on our social channels and saying, we've got this job, apply here. I think that isn't enough nowadays. I think you've got to give people more reason to want to be interested. You know, so particularly for some of our harder to roles, for some of our locations that might struggle, I think there's a real need to showcase them in whatever way you can. So, you know, I suppose we have a few tools in our kind of content armory. So that, like I say, you know, it might be that that's one of the reasons we're exploring podcasts. It might be that we do a dedicated podcast and kind of push that. If we're looking, say, for data analysts, you know, can we push that out to data analysts through sponsored social, or, you know, what other routes to market have we got? It's why we're looking to explore doing webinars as well. So, you know, we can get business leaders talking to the people that are actually interested in particular roles. So I think it's trying to provide more direct engagement rather than just the kind of the passive job post. So yeah, what think about content, I think is key.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely spot on. It's like, you know, thinking about the audience. So you can imagine some people going, well, of course it's about the audience. But I think I've talked about this before on the previous episodes, is that, you know, there's the audience, the target audience, which may not actually be an audience. Actually, it's not like they're waiting to maybe see your content. They might be busy doing other things, God forbid, but I think there's that thing about, it's not just demographics, it's actually about, those psychographics, what are their needs and motivations, and starting with what can we give them as opposed to what is it we need to sell, what do we need to get out of this, and that's content marketing is absolutely bang on for that. So it's great you say that.
And what I find really
you wouldn't be planning a podcast if you didn't have that view.
Exactly.
Viewpoint, to be honest.
And what I find really fascinating, actually, so earlier in my career, I took a brief sojourn out of employer brand and kind of was at a B2B marketing agency, and content has always, I think, it was adopted far earlier as a strategy by B2B than it ever was in recruitment. And it's kind of, I think recruitment's caught up and has and just started to see the value of content. But actually that was really valuable as a kind of an insight into actually this is what makes for good content. Obviously the B2B sells very, very different and a lot longer. But I think the principles are the same essentially, and that wasn't really, when I did that back in I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, content wasn't really that big in recruitment.
No, I still say it's still relatively untapped, to be honest. It's one of the reasons I kind of set up this podcast, because I just felt there wasn't enough examples and enough discussions specifically about content marketing in employer marketing context. I think that's going on that kind of agenda item of audience. I think then there's a nice little exercise even they could do during the event or during the meeting, or actually say, let's book something in tomorrow right now for say an hour or 45 minutes, which is take maybe some absolute priority roles and people that you absolutely want to get in front of, and just do some persona mapping. It doesn't have to be ultra scientific to start with. You've got to start somewhere. So just really think about, say, one or two types of people you're wanting to turn into a registrant or an applicant, and going, well, what are they? Let's put a name on them. Let's say what their wants and desires are, and that could then be a nice starting point for a brief for someone else, or something to be picked up for a campaign.
And I know content isn't expensive either. Most of it you can produce for free. I mean, I'm talking to you. I've got my headphones plugged into my laptop, and that's it. And editing software is free or very, very cheap. If you can, I've taught myself to edit podcasts, so. I would say that people should not be deterred by thinking, oh, this is really scary. It's not. It's actually it can be quite straightforward to do.
Well, I think what's happening now is what's happened. I think we're always going to get to this point, but I think, like with many things in the world right now, caused by the last 8-9 months, has been that it's sped things up. I think like on previous episode, quite a while ago now, talking to Nick Francis at Casual Films, and saying that, I think he said that when you see the BBC doing video chats and that is their content, actually in a way that's kind of it, people see that as being an acceptable level of quality, I say with air quote marks. If the BBC think it's fine, then there should be a whole load of other organizations that think that's fine as well. And it goes back to the thing about just things being natural, a little bit more natural. So
I think that's
always need the lights, camera, action content.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, the first time you see it, we thought, oh, that doesn't look great. But now, it's normal, and people understand why it's like that.
Exactly.
So I think that's a really, really good point.
I'm doing something with a client at the moment, which is I got them to do a 13-minute conversation on Zoom, and from that got some just absolute dynamite in terms of just some great content about their experience and stories of working with colleagues, etc. And we got one long edit and then basically like 6 mini edits off the back of it. Content can be used a number of times, and that could end up being like multiple pieces of social content, and of course for the career site as well.
Yeah, and that's that's something that we did with that video. Actually, we cut it up into 6 other shorter pieces and pushed them out separately, kind of as a bit of a teaser campaign. But that gave us enough content for 2 or 3 weeks.
You're right.
So repurposing and is, I think, it's really important to consider as well.
Nice. Okay. Well, I think actually that's enough to put on an agenda item. That could actually be a meeting in itself. It's about routing things in the audience, and so I think that'd be a good meeting.
Yeah, and the other, I think, just one other thing that I think is also worth considering, is just distribution as well, and how you're going to get out to those people. I've been exploring podcast platforms and all sorts at the moment, which is a whole different world. But I don't necessarily be wedded to kind of the old way of doing things. I'd say, it's even in the past year, I think, things like the job board market have evolved just so rapidly that what I would have done with clients agency side kind of in 2019 is not what I would be doing now. So I think I think the other thing is to think about is how are you going to reach those people, and whether it's pushing that content or kind of promoting your roles kind of on job boards or whatever it might be, but to really think actually how you can target those people better, and to be really open-minded, because I've had some really interesting chats with lots of interesting suppliers and people in the industry over the past year, and it's really interesting to see the way the industry is going to go, I think.
That's absolutely bang on for an audience discussion, isn't it? Because not only does it inform the content you should be creating, but it's you've got to reach those people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's ultimately, I've seen it lots of times where you see that maybe an organization spent time and effort putting some content together, and then it's just put onto YouTube, and you get very few views. But so is a piece of content good if no one sees it? Don't want to get too philosophical.
If the right people see it, then
so distribution is absolutely key. And you're right, there's so many ways to go direct to market as well these days.
I think it's important that kind of people also don't get hung up on the wrong kind of metrics, because volume doesn't necessarily equal quality. As same with hiring, but it's the same with content. Just because you might have 10,000 people seeing a video that you've created doesn't mean it's right if it's going in front of the wrong people.
Exactly. Nice, great, good stuff. Well, I think that's our time now. But thanks very much, Rich. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Look outside. It's now dark, so
almost
not too far from the weekend.
Roll on the weekend.
That's right. But thanks very much, Rich. It's good to catch up, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye, Chris.
Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed what you heard, then please feel free to subscribe, and it would be awesome if you could leave a review as well. It really does help.